I think I might have just ruined this project. My name is Miles, and in today's exciting video, I'm going to try and make a collapsible lantern, which turns out to be one of the most complicated things I've made. Let's go. So this is the idea. There's a wood piece on the bottom and a wood piece on the top, and they slide together. And when it slides open, it turns the light on. This is going to be pretty complicated, so we'll see if I can pull this off. For the electronics of this project, I'm going to be stealing them from this cheap lantern that you can find on Amazon. This just seemed like the easiest solution because it had USB-C charging, and the LED was a nice warm temperature. This lantern has a touch feature where you can adjust the brightness, and although it is cool, I won't be using it for this build. This is not a good sign. I thought this might be able to easily pop out, but it's not moving at all. I figured there might be some screws underneath this foam ring, and it turns out that I was right. Alright, all the screws are out. Let's see if I can get it out. Let me try the screwdriver real quick. Ooh, let's go. Once I removed the base, I cut the wire between the circuit board and the LED ring. I was then left with all the electronic pieces that I would need. I tested the circuit with some magnets in between the wire because this is how the lantern's going to turn off and on later in the build. This is the Snapmaker A350, a 3-in-1 machine that's a CNC, a laser cutter, and a 3D printer. I'm going to be using the 3D printer attachment to make the shade of this lantern. I want to thank Snapmaker for sending me one of their machines to add to my shop. It's been super cool getting to experiment with all three methods of digital fabrication, and I think it'll add a lot to my projects in the future. If you want to check out Snapmaker, there's a link in the description. I designed this lantern shade in Fusion 360 based off of a lot of measurements I took after doing some full-scale sketches. The 3D printer filament that I'm using is actually made out of recycled plastic bottles, which makes me happy knowing that I'm not introducing any new plastic into the environment. After the print was done, it was time to start work on making the wood sections of this lantern. Now that I had the maple blank all glued up, it was time to throw this onto my lathe and get to turning. I also cut the corners off on the bandsaw so that it would be easier to turn. I haven't done any wood turning for over 6 months, and I think I just forgot how many wood shavings it actually produces. Once I got in the blank down to the right diameter, I started turning the end flat. I then turned the end down so there's just a little bit sticking off, which would allow me to put it in my chuck. The lathe chuck just allows me to have one end of the workpiece entirely free from the tailstock so that I can start hollowing out the inside. To start removing material, I grabbed my largest Forstner bit and put it in my drill chuck. While I finish sanding on the lathe, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creative and curious people. If you want to learn some new skills, whether it be woodworking, videography, or 3D printing, Skillshare has thousands of inspiring classes that will help you gain knowledge about whatever creative skill set you're interested in. A class that I've been taking which has been super helpful is Learn Fusion 360 in 30 Days for Complete Beginners by Kevin Kennedy. I've been wanting to get better at Fusion 360 so that I can design and print projects on my 3D printer or design larger projects like furniture pieces. The thing that I really love about this class is that all the information is in one location and I don't have to go around searching on the internet to find different things on a case-by-case basis. If you're also interested in learning a new skill or expanding your creative skill set, the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the lantern. Okay, so this bottom piece, now that it's sanded, is pretty much done. And I have the lantern shade right here, so let's see how these two fit together. Okay, so they do fit together pretty well, but I'm not totally satisfied though because the fit is a little bit looser than I'd like. You can kind of hear it. But I think I might have a way to fix this, so let's try that out. Oh yeah, that's definitely a lot better fit. And for this next step, we're gonna need a dowel. After harvesting a dowel, I cut a short piece off the end, but it ended up being too short, so I cut another using the bandsaw, which is much more precise. I was now ready to enact my plan for making the lantern shade not rotate. This was a surprisingly simple solution, but it took me quite a while to think of it. Now that that was done, I needed to solve the issue of charging, so I drilled out a slot for the USB jack to stick through. Next came another slightly tricky challenge, which was making the wood switch on the bottom. As I later realized, the switch was entirely pointless because, as you know, the way that this lantern is going to turn off and on is much cooler. Okay, so what I want to try and figure out next is a way for it to click into place when it's fully extended. And the way I'm gonna do that is by adding some magnets to both the shade and the base. Let's figure that out. When I designed the shade, I added 2 holes on either side for the tiny magnets to sit in. Now it was just a matter of installing the opposing magnets on the wood base. After the magnets were in, I made this little wood tower, which is going to be an integral piece of the mechanics of the lantern. I ended up soldering some of the wires together and lengthening others, which is really hard to show on camera, so you'll just have to trust me on this one. This piece of plywood will act as both the stop for the lantern shade and the switch for the LED itself. I used some paint to transfer the location of the magnets onto the plywood so I could install the opposing magnets in the correct position. I then set the plywood piece on top of the magnets and let the paint transfer the spots I needed to drill. Before I could assemble everything, I had to apply finish to the base. Now that I'd finished the bottom, I could get to assembling the magnetic switch. I started by gluing in a magnet with one of the 2 wires touching underneath it. Then I glued one of the wires from the LED to the opposing magnet. After that, I glued in the plywood piece and soldered the last 2 wires to complete the circuit. Okay, so this is the moment of truth. We're gonna see if the light actually turns on. Dude, check it out. And it's pretty smooth. I'm liking that. So the bulk of this lantern is done, except for the top, which is what we're gonna make now. I glued up this blank off camera and now I just need to turn it into a lid that goes on top. But this is really going to be the easy part because after this I have to make the folding handle on top, which I really don't know how I'm gonna do. So let's throw this on the lathe and get to turning. It's not plugged in. There we go. I started making a slot for the handle by drilling 2 holes with a 3/4 inch Forstner bit. You'll see why I do this in a little bit. Next, I attached this router template I made in Adobe Illustrator using some blue tape and Starbond CA glue. This template will allow me to cut a slot for the curved handle to sit in. So I'm fairly surprised at how well that worked with the router template. Now I need to make the handle, which I was originally planning to do with steam bending, but I don't think I'll have enough time because it would take multiple days just for the wood to dry. So I have a different plan, which I think will work. Now I know this is not going to be as strong as a steam bent handle, but I just don't have enough time to let the wood soak and dry for a couple of days. After I cut out the curved shape, I needed to round over the end so that it would fit into the rounded hole I drilled earlier. After adding a few coats of finish, I attached the wood handle with some screws. I decided in the moment that I should add some foil tape to hopefully increase the brightness of the lantern, and this ended up paying off quite a bit. After adding some dowel plugs to cover the screw heads, it was time to glue the two main pieces together. I thought using hot glue would allow me to more easily remove the top of the lantern if the lantern broke, but you'll see why this was a fatal mistake.
No. There's no way I'm getting this off. Oh my god, dude.
Did I just ruin this project? I think I might have just ruined this project. Dude, look at that gap. That is not a pleasant sight. What am I gonna do? I'm thinking if I hit with a mallet, maybe it'll close the gap. I just did not think that the hot glue was gonna dry so fast. That is doing absolutely nothing. Okay, so there's only one other solution that might work. What I'm thinking is use the heat gun to melt the hot glue and hopefully that'll release it. My very last solution, which I think is gonna work, is this little scalpel, and hopefully this will do the trick. This is actually kind of dangerous. Anything for the project though. That's plastic coming out right there. Oh, yo, let's go. Okay, we're doing this for reals now. We're gonna use some super glue because we're not making the same mistake twice, are we? If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. It really helps me out. And if you want to see my next video, make sure you're subscribed. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.